Okay, hello everyone. It is June 19th, 2025 when I'm videoing this one, and you may have been seeing some of the clips of the Tucker Carlson Ted Cruz blow up. Cruz came in for an interview with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson usually hands out a lot of softballs, and he went full attack dog on Ted Cruz, very much caught him by surprise. Ted Cruz is actually a very good debater. Um, Tucker definitely had the element of surprise on his side in this one. But I want to offer rebuttals to some of Tucker's points. I've not watched the whole interview. I've seen some of the clips that have come out, so I'm going to offer a rebuttal. The first one is he asked Ted Cruz, what's the population of Iran? Ted Cruz didn't know. And then he goes, well, it's 92 million people. And you want to topple the regime of a country, you don't even know the population. The idea being you don't know what you're talking about. So let me start. I'm going to rebut three of his points. So let me start with this one first. So rebuttal number one is the population of Iran is largely irrelevant. And by the way, I would point out that Ted Cruz, there's a follow-up question. We said, can you describe the population? And Ted Cruz said, Shia Muslim and Persian. It is a majority Persian country, is a majority Shia Muslim country. So Ted Cruz was absolutely right about that. Now, Tucker then went on about, well, hold on, there's, ethnic minorities and whatnot. And there are. In any big country, you're going to have that. But yes, I would say that Cruz was essentially correct about that. And he was asked a basic question, he gave a basic answer, and he was correct. Um, but why does it not matter that Ted Cruz doesn't know what the population of Iran is? Because in this particular case, we are not looking, the United States, under no circumstance, is looking to invade Iran, occupy Iran, conquer Iran, or anything like that. No ground invasion. If you're going to do a ground invasion, you better know the population. What the United States is interested in is a strategic bombing campaign targeting Iran's nuclear facilities and their missile delivery capability. Potentially, the Iranian Navy could play into that as a target, but that's a different topic. The point of this is, in terms of what is the relevant information, it would be where are their nuclear facilities, what are their capabilities, what types of ordnance and equipment do we need to knock them out. You really don't need to know much about Iranian air defense at this point, or the Iranian Air Force, because the Israelis have pretty much destroyed it all. Excuse me. Knowing the targets and the ordnance that you would need to destroy the targets, that would be relevant. So I would say that point, it's a nice gotcha question. It's also completely irrelevant. If, on the other hand, there were discussions of we're going to launch a large scale ground invasion of Iran and we need to occupy the country and control the country, now you're going to need to know a lot about the population. But outside of that, you really don't. So that's point one. Let me move on to the second point he raised, which is he asked the question, is there a single successful regime change that America has supported in the past 100 years? Okay, so this is limited from 1925 forward. So this would eliminate, for instance, the successful regime change in Germany at the end of World War I. We got rid of the Kaiser, and most importantly, Erich Ludendorff, who was the de facto military dictator of Germany by the end of the war. And this would lead to the Weimar Republic, which was actually a democratic state with civil rights and didn't invade its neighbors and all that stuff. We all know that eventually Hitler took that over, and everything went very, very, very bad. But the Weimar Republic by itself was an enlightened liberal democracy. So we're going to eliminate that as an example of success. Let me offer the counter to this point. Tucker's point, obviously, is that regime change is always a failure. Point one is that, again, an irrelevant question. The goal of the United States, if we were to get involved in a bombing campaign against Iran, is not to topple and eliminate Khomeini's government. There are thousands of mullahs, so just replace them. But the elimination of their nuclear program and eliminating their ballistic missile program, because that is the security threat. The Iranian military and navy by itself is not really much of a security threat. I mean, it is some. They could invade Iraq. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's zero, but it's not the major one. The major one is their nuclear program. So regime change isn't really necessary for that. But let me just go ahead and address the question more directly than that. Nazi Germany, we pulled off a successful regime change. Fascist Italy, we pulled off a successful regime change. Imperial Japan, we pulled off a successful regime change. Noriega in Panama, very successful regime change. Iraq, we pulled off a very successful regime change. Now, you may say, hey, the pretext was BS or it wasn't worth the cost. Fine, those are valid arguments. Feel free to make them in the comments if you want to. But the Hussein government is destroyed. Saddam is dead. His sons are dead. Most of his senior leaders are either dead or in jail. And we now have a democratic government in Iraq that the United States established in 2006. And later this year, they will hold what I believe will be their fifth round of elections since then. Women still hold around 20% of the seats in parliament. Admittedly, look, Iraq's got a lot of problems. It is a minimally functional government, but that it is functional and it is a democracy. Um, Far from perfect, many flaws. Don't get me wrong, but that was a successful regime change. Afghanistan was not. We obviously lost Afghanistan. A so yes, we definitely have. Oh, I'm sorry. The big one, the Soviet Union. The United States, through the Cold War, eventually wins and brings down the Soviet Union. Now, you may say, well, look at Russia now with Putin. I mean, it's terrible. Russia isn't the Soviet Union. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are free countries now. Ukraine is fighting to remain a free country. Countries like Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan, they are at least have national self-determination. They are not under the thumb of the Russians anymore. Think about countries like Poland or East Germany or Czechoslovakia. I know that's now two countries. Or Romania. That these are now free countries, no longer being subjugated by the Soviet Union. We brought down the Soviet regime, and although Putin's regime is a terrible, awful regime, many other countries are now free, and hundreds of millions of people are no longer under Russian oppression. That was highly successful. So that would be my rebuttal to Mr. Carlson on that. And then the last point that Tucker made, that I'm going to address here, and he made obviously many points, is he said, well, the Iranian regime, the Biden administration said the Iranian regime tried twice to assassinate Donald Trump. Let's assume for the sake of argument that that's completely true and that happened. And that Tucker goes on to say, well, then shouldn't we nuke Tehran? I mean, isn't it the most important thing? We need to just nuke Tehran. That is an unbelievably stupid thing for Tucker Carlson to say. Tehran is a city of approximately 14 million people in the metro area. Why on earth would we need to kill millions of innocent men, women, and children because the Iranian intelligence services tried to assassinate an American presidential candidate? The correct response has kind of already been done for us. If someone said, all right, this happened, all right, I have to decide the response, you would start hitting their intelligence agencies. You would take out their buildings, you would take out their leadership, things like that. The Israelis have already done that. Now, not on our behalf, but I'm just saying, well, kind of on our behalf. But they've already done that. The leaders of their intelligence services are pretty much all dead. The buildings that they operate out of have been destroyed. So the correct response to that would be to hammer the parts of the government that were behind that. And I mean hammer them big time. It needs to be damaging, it needs to be painful, it needs to be done in such a way so that they are never inclined to do that again. The idea that we need to flash fry a million plus Iranian children in Tehran is just stupid. So basically what Tucker was saying is, well, why won't you take this dumb action? So that proves that this is all pointless because you won't do this obviously stupid, irrational, insane thing. It's sort of like if someone said, well, should we nuke Moscow to stop the war in Ukraine? Well, why would we do that? We don't need to kill 3 million Muscovites to stop the war in Ukraine. Much better off supplying weaponry and equipment to the Ukrainians and let them just kill the Russian army in the Donbass. So it's one of these. You take this hyperbolic response and say, well, you won't do that, and that disproves your case. No, it doesn't. So those are my rebuttals to Mr. Carlson. I will again remind everyone that in my opinion, Mr. Carlson is a paid foreign asset. In fact, we actually have proof. We know the Qataris pay him. I do not have any evidence that the Russians pay him, but I am 99.9% certain that he gets paid by the Russians. But there you go. You've heard my rebuttal. If you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, say so in the comments. As always, feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to fact check me. I do not believe in echo chambers. And yeah, hope everyone's enjoyed this. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.